What's going on, football fans? It's time once again for another rendition of the Pound for Pound. I'm your host, J.R. Clark, and today we're going to be talking about the defensive line, the curious case of the defensive line. As many of you probably were just like myself, going into the draft thinking that we were going to draft defensive linemen, high in the draft, being in the first 3 rounds. Uh, we're probably pretty disappointed coming out of the draft with two first round guards, or not guards, but offensive linemen. Um, when I say the part that I guess disappoints me is I was really expecting the team to invest some draft capital in the defensive line this year. Past few years, that's kind of been what has been expected of us, and that hasn't happened. So I was expecting it to happen, this year. Uh, I guess to kind of give you an insight on what when I look at the draft, what I think. Definitely by no means am I a draft expert, but these are just my opinions. Is the first round and the second round, you should get starters, period. The third round, you should get a starter or rotational player. But you're still looking for a starter in the first 3 rounds. When you get into the fourth round, now you're looking at a, rotational player, heavily rotational, possibly backup. Fifth round, you're looking at like rotational player, but more than likely a backup. From the sixth on, you're looking at backup special teams, period. Right? So that's the kind of how I see the draft. And I was really expecting this year for them to draft a defensive tackle or defensive end in the first round, but definitely a defensive tackle. So leading up to the draft, when they brought in Tyler Davidson from the Saints, they brought back Adrian Claiborne, who went off to win a Super Bowl with the Patriots. He decided to come back to Atlanta after the Patriots do what they do, which is get a year or two out of a veteran and then cut bait. That's just how they operate. Then they brought back the more curious piece, and that's Rashid Hageman. Now, Dimitrov drafted him, but this coaching staff had no ties to him. They tried for a couple of years. Then he had some domestic issues, and the team felt like they had to cut him loose. They had to let him go. They felt like the evidence or whatever was more than they wanted to deal with. And Hageman now has been out of the league for 2 years. So this is a low risk, high reward type situation. Hageman was a second round talent. And for all those people who want to argue that, I remember that year a lot of mock drafts had him going late in the first round, early second round. Well, we took him in the second round. And there were times that he showed those flashes. But I don't know if any of y'all have a athletics subscription. I don't. I don't feel like I should have to pay to read an article, but that's just my opinion. There was a quote, because they did a piece on Hageman. And there was a quote that I saw that Hageman felt like he's more focused this time around. That he didn't take the first time very seriously, which was evident. Whether it was him being the knucklehead star of Hard Knocks or you just seeing it on the field. Some plays he would just absolutely dominate the offensive lineman, and then the rest of the game he would just disappear. So he became an enigma. But he had the traits of a first round defensive tackle. Just freakish size, athleticism, all that stuff. Everything that you could want and that you could look for, But he just never did put it together consistently. And that was his biggest problem. Between that and the arguing with the coaches on the sideline, whether it was Brian Cox, bashing heads with him, or I'm not 100% sure. I think he may have gotten cut before Brian Young really got a hold of him, but still, either way, he never really did live up to his potential. Now, 2 years later, 2 years out of league. In that time, you had the Patriots kick tires on him and the Minnesota Vikings kick tires on him. So it's not like we were the only ones. So he's going to have to serve a 3-game suspension at the beginning of the year. So he's going to have to show something during preseason to show that he's worth keeping on the roster. I can almost guarantee you, I can't remember the numbers, but the wasn't very high as far as like guaranteed money and stuff like that. So you're not in this guy for a ton of financial risk. So that's why I stated he's a low risk, high reward type signing. So, but then that leads back into the fact that with those 3 signings, that kind of told you that they weren't going to put a lot of draft capital in defensive tackle. I think they feel real good about being able to re-sign Grady Jarrett, who has already signed his tender. I feel like they think that they can get a deal done with him and keep him here long term. So if they didn't think that they could get him here long term, I believe you would have seen him pull the trigger on a guy like Ed Oliver. That penetrating 3 technique. But you already have that in Grady. And I think you have one of the better ones in Grady. I've seen some PFF numbers, if you're into that kind of thing, floating around Twitter, talking about like he's right up there with Aaron Donald, as far as productivity. Except for maybe, sacks. I'm talking about, like run stopping and stuff of that nature. So, with that being said, you bring back Adrian Claiborne and you sign Tyler Davidson. Now, Davidson is a run stuffing defensive tackle out of New Orleans who the articles I read that broke him down, y'all probably have read the same ones, but he doesn't give you much as far as pass rush goes, but he's, and can clog up the middle, take on double teams, and is real good in the run game. So, in your base defense, the way I kind of see it is you're probably going to have, Davison and Jarrett in the middle, and then Crawford and Claiborne on the edges in the base, I would think. Now, I could be completely wrong. Hell, I've been wrong plenty of times before. So this is the way I see it. And then, depending on what kind of steps, McKinley takes, he could be on the field in your base package. But I would think that on first down and obvious rundowns, you're going to want Jack Crawford and Adrian Claiborne on the edges with Tyler Davidson or like Tyler Davidson, Deidre Sanad, and Grady Jarrett, like a combination of those 3 in the middle. And then on your nickel packages, which they've said and harped on many times before, that you're in nickel 65% of the time. So your nickel package is going to be Tack McKinley, Beasley, and then potentially Crawford or Claiborne, and then Jarrett. So that could be an interesting combination. That combination, something similar like that, is kind of what you saw a good bit in 16. But instead of Tack McKinley, it was Adrian Claiborne, and you also had you'd sprinkle in Dwight Freeney from time to time. So I think if you put Beasley in that wide 9, have him come from wider out, trying to get more of a straight line shot into the QB, use his raw speed. I think that may be how they deploy Beasley this year. I know that they are like, they got high hopes for him this year, obviously. They picked up his 5th-year option. They didn't try to rework it. And, the comments that they've made is that they feel like he's going to have the best year that he's ever had. So let's hope so. I mean, if he can come on and if Tack can come on, along with just solid production from Claiborne and Crawford, our defensive line can go back to being something that we can be proud of as Falcons fans, and that can really affect the game the way that I know Dan Quinn wants that defensive line to affect the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they deploy them. I think pay attention to Hageman in the preseason because I think that with the right attitude, he has a potential to be as good as a second, third round pick this year would have been for us, and so that's encouraging to me. It seems like he's got his head on straight, and apparently whatever personal stuff that was in his past or whatever, the team feels like he has addressed that. I know the charges were dropped on him, but that don't mean nothing. Um, as being a parent myself now, I think some of that had to do with a kid, and that's not cool to me. I hope that it was something that was blown out of proportion because we're not privy to all the details. So I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like I'm not going to pass judgment on it. I guess is what I'm saying. So if the team feels like he did what he was supposed to do and the courts dismissed it, hopefully there was nothing there. So that's all I've really got to say on that. But yeah, I think the defensive line is something to watch. And then you add in Kaminsky, depending on how quick DQ can get him up and going. You end up with a real interesting mix. So that's what I got for y'all today. Rookie mini camp's coming up this weekend, so I'll be keeping an eye on that, and probably we'll post something next week about whatever news comes out of there. Hopefully, it's some good stuff. But as always, Falcons fans, rise up.